Windows, Mac, Linux. Long ago, the three nations, something Avatar reference, but then the nation of obscure operating systems attacked, and nothing was disrupted. I don't know where I was going with this intro. If you're no stranger to the world of weird operating systems, you've heard of the popular ones like ToaruOS, Hannah Montana Linux, RedoxOS, and so on. But what if I told you that was barely scratching the surface of the iceberg? There are plenty of unique, esoteric, and downright strange operating systems out there just waiting to be discovered by you. Not necessarily be used, just discovered. Most of these are not practical at all, but in the name of science and curiosity, I shall be your guide on this adventure. I suggest you stick around until the end. Every single one of these OSes is interesting in its own right, and they only get more and more fascinating. I'm Kalos, I like computers, and today I'll be exploring and reviewing some obscure operating systems you might have never even heard of. And just like these operating systems challenge us to think differently about what an OS can be, there's a place where your curiosity about the world of code, math, and AI is not just welcomed, but nurtured and celebrated. This video is sponsored by Brilliant.org. In this digital odyssey, as we navigate through the quirky and unconventional, it's clear that the joy of discovery lies not just in finding the odd and obscure, but in understanding the logic and creativity that powers them. This journey is not unlike the one Brilliant.org invites us on. Brilliant is where curiosity meets hands-on learning, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. It's a place where you're not just a passive observer, but an active participant, delving into the mechanics of how things work. Whether you're unraveling the mysteries of programming or decoding the complexities of artificial intelligence, Brilliant empowers you to think differently, to solve problems creatively, and to expand your understanding from the ground up. Just like how you need to use Vim all day every day to master it and create the next unicorn startup from your mom's basement, Brilliant encourages this daily habit of discovery. It's the perfect antidote to mindless scrolling, offering bite-sized lessons that fit into any schedule. If you're new to coding, the Programming with Python course is a good place to start. It's good for getting hands-on with code and learning by solving problems, not just by reading tutorials. If, on the other hand, you're an advanced traditional programmer but haven't wrapped your head around AI yet, the course How LLMs Work might be for you. So, if you're ready to take your learning to the next level and explore everything from the fundamentals of code to the cutting edge of AI, head over to brilliant.org/Kalos. You'll get to try all of Brilliant's courses for free for 30 days, and there's a 20% discount on an annual subscription waiting for you. Click the link in the description to start your journey with Brilliant today. A quick note, I'd like to let you know that we have a Discord server now. Hop on by. Or don't, I'm not your dad. But your dad would probably want you to subscribe. Over 98% of our viewers are not subscribed, and that just makes me sad because you'll miss our next adventure together if you don't know that it's happening. So click that button. I'm watching you. Anyway, why don't we warm up by exploring a project known to most of you to set the baseline. We're only going to go further down the rabbit hole from here. First up, let's talk about ReactOS. ReactOS is a project that aims to completely reverse engineer the Microsoft Windows NT kernel and implement it into an open source OS that is fully compatible with all Windows apps. I wouldn't say it's there yet, but it's made some significant progress throughout its development so far, and it's definitely left its mark on operating systems history. It's ancient by our standards, having started development in 1996, and it's still in alpha. Take that,
Star Citizen.
I've been following the project for over a decade myself, and it's gone from an unusable crashing mess to a slightly more beautiful unusable crashing mess. For some use cases, it might be stable enough to replace old Windows versions, but I personally have not had any luck getting it to run reliably in a virtual environment. Development seems to have reached some sort of plateau because we actually haven't had a release in 2 years at this point. From what I could find, the team has dwindled down to like 14 developers as of now, but I don't know how accurate that information is as it comes from their wiki page, which probably isn't updated very often. Progress used to be faster than this in the past, but they're definitely still working on it. In fact, the last couple of versions give us some sweet themes, including this one called Mizu, which is inspired by the unreleased watercolor theme from Windows XP's beta codenamed Whistler. Get it? Mizu? Watercolor? ReactOS relies on parts of the Wine project to run Windows applications, but not in the way a Linux distribution does. Wine is usually a compatibility layer that allows Windows applications to run under different OSes by translating instructions meant for the NT kernel into instructions meant for the target system. ReactOS, however, has the exact same kernel architecture as NT, but uses Wine libraries in the place of Microsoft's proprietary Win32 APIs. This way, it manages to be compatible with the Windows programs of the era pretty seamlessly. You could probably even theme it to look like Windows and fool the average person into thinking it's just an old Windows version. Everything in this project besides the wine libraries is written from scratch, consisting of reverse-engineered Windows code and original reimplementations of Windows features. The kernel, the drivers, the services, the programs, everything is made to emulate the feeling of Windows with none of the original code. Very impressive. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Can it run Doom? Well, yes, technically. I tried for genuinely like 2 hours to get it to work, and all I got was this lousy corrupted virtual machine. Here's some footage of someone actually running it though, so apparently it can run Doom. Just not when I try it. ReactOS hates me, and now I also hate it. Next. Quick, what's the hottest new blazingly fast programming language out right now? Rust. Thank you, Chris, from a couple of videos ago. So, what if an entire operating system was built in Rust? Well, that's what Redox OS is. This chemistry-themed OS, in the team's own words, aims to bring the innovations of Rust to a modern microkernel and full set of applications. Its name is a reference to chemical reactions called redox reactions, which can generate Rust. Cute, smart, I like it, extra points. It's mostly developed by its creator, Jeremy Soller, aka Jackpot51, and has 90 contributors on GitHub as of the making of this video. We will judge shortly how far along they are on their mission, but first some specifications and tidbits. The Redox team has many cool things to brag about, and honestly, they don't brag enough. Firstly, this OS is not based on anything. It's built completely from scratch. The kernel with its microkernel design, the drivers, the core utilities, the desktop environment, all the applications except the ported games, and even the C library are all original code and are all written in Rust. As a result, everything loads extremely fast. Secondly, that desktop environment I just mentioned earlier is called Orbital, keeping up with the chemistry theme, and it's not just a desktop environment but also a display server, window manager, and compositor. Thirdly, the original code doesn't stop there. They've actually built their own file system called Redox OS, how original, which allows the bootloader to load the kernel off of an encrypted partition. Also, continuing the chemistry terminology, it comes with a periodic table app as well as a text editor called Sodium. Lastly, this is a little quirk that I find really interesting, everything in Redox OS is a URL, meaning that just like how websites start with HTTPS or file transfer servers start with FTP, all files in Redox to the kernel start with such an identifier, for example, file, or display, . It's an interesting design decision, very 21st century. I could go on and on about the quirks and features of this OS, but enough about technicalities. Let's see it in action. Honestly, it's underwhelming. It's missing a lot of key features I would consider essential for a computer operating system, or at least things that I'm used to. For starters, there's no right-click. I mean, there might be, but right-clicking anywhere didn't yield any response from the operating system in my experience. And then, the pre-packaged applications are all very, very bare bones. Of course, they're all original and written in Rust, which is impressive, but it just goes to show that Redox OS is very early in its development and it's not what I would call usable. Their web browser is very bare bones and behind when it comes to technology. It does not render my website properly at all. In fact, it does not even render its own homepage properly. But can it run Doom? Hell yeah, it can. It actually comes pre-packaged with the OS, and it runs really well. Good job to Jeremy Soller and all the contributors. I think this is a really promising system. Please show them some love, and if you're a Rust developer, consider lending your aid to the project. Now say hello to this next system. helloSystem is a reaction to Apple's evolution. It's an operating system based on FreeBSD, aimed at creators with the goal of privacy, simplicity, and consistency across the user interface. The decision to use FreeBSD as the base makes sense, as macOS itself is based on BSD. As for the reason why this exists, the developers of helloSystem started disagreeing with Apple's business practices in very fundamental ways somewhere down the line, and sought to recreate what they loved about early macOS 10 in a free and open source environment. helloSystem calls itself a system for mere mortals, being adamant in its simple and intuitive design, proudly proclaiming that everything in it is meant to be done without interacting with a terminal. The visual language of the operating system is nice, albeit quite dated. It is, of course, very reminiscent of macOS 10's Aqua design language, as I think it tries to be. The OS has many quirks due to its philosophy, such as that no app is allowed to have any menu other than the global menu at the top, or that everything you open in the file manager is its own window with absolutely no decorations, tabs, navigation, nothing. These are very strong design opinions that the development team adheres to, seeing them as a solution to modern interface design failures. Continuing with the trend of bold claims and frankly cocky attitude, it's the only OS I've seen in my life with a reviewer guide in the documentation. They recommend that reviewers use real hardware to accurately represent the system's capabilities. Well, I tested it in a virtual machine first to see if it's worth installing on real hardware, because we don't all have spare hard drives lying around. The system is so insistent on being installed on bare metal that there's a pop-up if it detects it's running in a virtual machine, nagging you to please put it in a real computer. But does it deserve to be installed on real hardware? Well, just see for yourself. Are you really not going to show me specific instructions for virtual machine platforms because you're adamant that I should install it on real hardware? That's crazy. I'm going to reserve judgment for later. Dedicated SSD with at least 120 gigabytes of storage. That's crazy for a hobbyist OS. But I guess they don't see themselves as hobbyists. I think they want this OS to be like a real OS. Oh, wow, it has like a video. That's going by really quickly. You might want to slow that down. That's dizzying. Okay, so these are like links to download. Let's actually run OBS Studio. I hope it's downloaded. Cool. Okay. Broken pipe? What do you mean? How do I raise the resolution? Screen settings. Preferences, screen settings. Hello? What is this? Layout. Sure. What? What am I looking at? What am I looking at? These are unlabeled buttons. Resolution. Okay, so you have to right-click it, go to How is this simple? You say that my computer has been made simple. I didn't understand how to do anything in this setting. What is this, bro? I need to install apps. How would I do that? Install. Applications. What? Does the search not work? Package manager? Is there any way to install applications here? Can I go somewhere, at least? Can I, like, open up the file manager? Filer. Filer? Can I open up Filer? So this is Filer. Okay. Where do I find my home directory? Home. Go, home. Okay, so it's in Go. There's no, like, home window for the file manager. Well, that works. I mean, it renders fine. Can I have tabs? File. New tab. So why is the tab bar not... Okay. I'm nitpicking, I know, but this is genuinely hard to use. I don't know how to feel about it. It's weird. It's not intuitive at all. Maybe it's because I'm just not used to it, okay? Oh, shit. I just quit the... Okay. Well, how do I get that back now? Hello? Oh. What? How did I quit the top bar? We've got Falcon, which is their own browser, but we've also got Firefox. Come on, I don't need this prompt every time. And it's not telling me any progress on this being downloaded. So, how do I know? Did OBS ever download? Or is this functionality broken? Come on, stop with that. Is it gonna tell me when it downloads something? Did it ever download Firefox? For f***'s sake, are you going to download it? Okay, finally, there's a progress bar. I don't know why I had to do it like 20 times for it to actually show me a progress bar. This is the first time I'm getting a progress bar for any of this. It's actually doing like a bunch of stuff here, like updating the repository and stuff. There is no app to do package. Oh, download applications. Download applications. Are you serious? That's what it's called. Do we have any sort of package manager? Any sort of simple browser? Why do we have a third browser? Applications. Maybe I'm just stupid, right? No, these are not okay, these are applications specifically written for helloSystem. Okay. Install. Boot process getting started, install helloSystem, reviewer guide, application bundles. It's still downloading Firefox. Gotta give them the benefit of the doubt. This is their own little browser, and it's... Oh, documentation. I don't care. Udemy? Why does it take me to Udemy? Why does it take me to Udemy if I do documentation? What? Is this what this is? Oh, it is! So that's why the documentation is here, because it's a fucking Udemy course on it. This is so stupid. Okay, what the actual just happened? What the actual just happened? Let's close out a simple browser, okay. What is that? What is that message? Can I open Firefox? Hello? Oh, is anything opening now? Is anything opening? Okay, so not even the application, like, chooser is opening. Let's restart, okay? Okay, I can't even restart. Cool. Great. Amazing. Let's restart through here. I want to see if I can open Firefox after installing it, because some error popped up with a bunch of missing files. I'm looking at this from the perspective of a first user, right? From the perspective of an end user who has no idea what they're looking at. Because I was promised a simple system. Is it going to boot up? Or did I just completely crash it by doing something that I was meant to do? Such as, I don't know, installing Firefox through the system's own utility to do so? Did I just brick the system? It's completely unresponsive. Okay, let's give it one last shot. Hopefully, don't give up on me now. I'm not giving up on you just yet. I'm about to. Okay. We are completely screwed. Cool! This is truly unusable. I am inclined to call this delusion from helloSystem. I'm trying to be nice though, but wow, this is not a favorable review. I'm honestly baffled by this OS. It achieves none of its goals, and it doesn't even look like it's trying, to be honest. How do you take a stable base like FreeBSD, notoriously used for mission-critical servers, and screw it up to the point where you can't even install a program? It's all bark, no bite, and I'd be way nicer about it if they didn't make all these claims about it, but they're really trying to push this as a fully functional system that simplifies your workflow. It's convoluted, strongly opinionated with zero user experience research to back up its decisions, and even as a seasoned operating systems connoisseur, I struggled to do very basic tasks in it. And this has nothing to do with real hardware versus virtual machines. The same errors and bugs, down to the complete self-destruction of the OS, would have happened on real hardware too, as this was entirely the fault of the software. Can it run Doom? Yes, but here's the kicker. It can only run Doom if you install it from the terminal. The OS that claims it will never require you to use the terminal can only install apps if you install them from the terminal. I'm sorry to say, that's kind of pathetic. Yikes. Goodbye, system. Here's another one. It's a modern BOS. It is called Haiku. Kill me. Haiku is an operating system meant to be an open source reimplementation of BOS, an OS from the 90s aimed at media creators of the time. BOS was praised for its superior 3D rendering capabilities and very fast performance on the company's own PowerPC-based B-Box hardware and Macintosh machines of the time, but unfortunately it failed to reach enough users to be sustainable as a product. BOS saw its last release in the year 2000, just 5 years after its initial release, and the company that created it, B Inc., was acquired by Palm in 2001 and dissolved. Fans of BOS were furious, and as a response started a reverse engineering project called OpenBOS, later renamed to Haiku to avoid copyright issues. As opposed to ReactOS, Haiku is fully backwards compatible with all BOS software in the 32-bit version of the ISO, and has been for some time now. When you first fire up Haiku, you're greeted with quite a friendly boot screen, followed by one of the most intuitive installers I've seen in these obscure OSes. The overall charm of the OS is very prevalent, with its cute icon set and retro aesthetics, and I find that very endearing. Along with coming with a bunch of applications, which is impressive in its own right, it also has some features that you might not expect, such as being able to group many applications together in a single window by holding the super key and stacking their title bars, or tiling applications next to each other in a similar way. Haiku's equivalent to a start menu is a desk bar, which keeps track of all your applications and can also host widgets. It's very similar to the Windows taskbar, with the widgets being equivalent to the Windows system tray. In fact, you can even make it look like Windows by customizing the desk bar to appear at the bottom of the screen. Customization can get pretty wild in this OS, just like old interfaces of the time allowed for, which I think is very sweet. I really miss customizable interfaces, and this one hits just the right spot. By all means, Haiku is fully featured. If you wanted, you could probably run this as the main OS of a computer, as long as you don't have to do any tasks that require software that isn't available for Haiku. It comes with a web browser called WebPositive, a bunch of apps like Media Player, Sound Recorder, TV Tuner, Mail, Magnifier, Disk Usage Analyzer, honestly, so many applications that I could see this OS being very viable. For third-party apps, there's a package manager in the form of Haiku Depot, and it contains a lot of applications, something we're not used to seeing in OSs such as this one that don't share a base with a more popular one. You can install other browsers such as Otter and Falcon, games, IDEs, anything. IntelliJ IDEA running in Haiku is such a strange sight, but it works flawlessly in my experience. Genuinely no complaints. Can it run Doom? Yes, and it actually runs the best out of all the OSs I tested for this video. It was a hassle to set up because I don't know the ins and outs of the system, but once I figured it out, it was a joy to play. Well, that was Haiku. It's a wonderful OS. Please give it a shot. And then shoot me while you're at it. I would now like to take you down to the depths of the esoteric, to a project so mysterious that I struggle to find much information on it besides the developer's own few words about it. A project so impressive yet so rarely covered that I don't even remember how I came to know of its existence. An OS that had so much potential yet was mysteriously abandoned by its developer just a month ago after 13 years of development. ToaruOS is unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's an operating system mostly developed by one person, going by the name Kalos, and it started in 2010 as a hobby project for them to learn about Unix-like operating systems by making one from scratch. Since then, it has turned into a beautiful, esoteric masterpiece with so many quirks that I cannot even compare it to anything else. So why do I think it's so impressive? Well, it's the whole presentation, but let's begin with the components that have been specifically developed for this OS. Misaka is the custom 64-bit kernel of the OS, not based on Linux or FreeBSD or anything else. Yutani is the window compositor, its name being a reference to the Wayland Yutani Corporation from the Alien franchise, since Yutani resembles the Wayland compositor. Kuroko is a dialect of Python with its own synonymous interpreter and serves as the scripting language of the OS. Bim is a Vim-like text editor with syntax highlighting, and there's also a linker to load ELF binaries, making it easy to develop applications for the system. But the real magic can be found in how the OS looks and feels like. In one word, wonder. The ISO is a mere 6.38 megabytes, it boots up in like 3 seconds, and it doesn't look like much upon first inspection, but that's because it doesn't tell you about most of its features. It has a package manager with quite a limited selection of packages, a few demo apps meant to show off its capabilities as a system, and some basic apps like a calculator, a wallpaper changer, and a system monitor, all developed by Langa from scratch. But have you ever wondered what an OS would look like if every window could not only be resized, but also rotated? Wonder no longer, because this is it. Windows can be moved by holding Alt and dragging with left click, rotated by holding Alt and dragging with right click, and on top of that, every window's opacity can be changed by holding Alt and using the scroll wheel. This can lead to some wacky setups. You can actually change the opacity of the top bar or even rotate the login screen if you want. Discovering this OS made me feel a sense of joy and wonder that I had not felt from computer software in many years. It serves as a peek into the mind of a genius dedicated developer with a passion project, if nothing else. So where is ToaruOS going from here? Well, on March 19th, 2024, with no warning or announcement, Kalos archived ToaruOS along with Kuroko and all related C projects on GitHub. Just a week prior, they had been actively working on the project, making commits like usual, and then nothing. In fact, Kuroko's github.io page only has the text, "Kuroko has been discontinued. I have made the decision to cease development of all my C projects." Hey, future Chris here. So actually, Kuroko has been restored, and it's no longer discontinued. ToaruOS, however, is still discontinued, and we don't know what's going to happen, but it seems that this is an ongoing situation. We tried asking about it on the IRC channel, but received no reply, and so, out of options and desperate for some sort of resolution, I booked a ticket to Japan. Okay, no. But I did attempt to kindly reach out to Kalos, completely at the risk of being annoying. They didn't reply to me, but who knows, we might get more information in the future. But can it run Doom? Yes, you can officially play Doom sideways at 50% opacity thanks to ToaruOS. I truly hope Kalos sees this video and reaches out, although I understand if they wish to leave it in the past. All things considered, ToaruOS deserves to have its history remembered, and I think it's not only very impressive from a development standpoint, but also an esoteric masterpiece of an operating system. Esotericism, deep thought, tranquility, yin-yang, zen, serenity. Serenity. Welcome to SerenityOS. Everything I've mentioned up to now in this video leads to this, the single most impressive, obscure operating system I've ever laid my eyes on. SerenityOS started in 2018 as a hobby project by developer Andreas Kling, who previously worked at Nokia and Apple. It's made to look like a late 90s OS with aliased fonts and pixel art design, and after going through a few design iterations in its early years, has consolidated to a look similar to Windows 98. It got especially popular during the pandemic, as Andreas Kling started posting a lot about it on his YouTube channel. Since its humble beginnings, it has grown into an extremely active project with a vibrant community of developers working on it at breakneck speeds. There are over 1,000 contributors on GitHub, with almost 10% of them having pushed over 100 commits to the project. Many popular applications have been ported to Serenity, but even if they hadn't, it comes with so many built-in, fully featured, completely original apps that I think it would still be impressive with zero third-party support. Some examples include Pixel Paint, a Microsoft Paint-like program with layers and other modern features, Hack Studio, an IDE and debugger for C++ that looks and feels a lot like Eclipse, a bunch of games like Solitaire, Minesweeper, and 2048, a task manager very reminiscent of Windows XP, fully featured mail and calendar apps as well as media players, global Spotlight-like search, and most importantly, a web browser called Ladybird with a completely from scratch engine, not based on any other rendering engine such as WebKit or Gecko. My only problem with this project so far is that they don't offer ISO images, which makes it difficult for the average user to give the OS a shot. In order to install SerenityOS and try it out, you have to build it yourself and set up a QEMU virtual machine for it. There are instructions on how to do this in the documentation on GitHub, so following those, I got to building to try it out for myself. When you first boot up SerenityOS, you're greeted with an interface that is very reminiscent of late 90s Windows. The cool thing about SerenityOS is that it looks old, but has very modern features and does not feel old at all when you're actually using it. It plays into the nostalgia without the drawbacks that come with software of that era. Among the pixel art design, you'll find transparency and soft shadows, for example. Compare this to something like ReactOS, which is trying to look exactly like Windows. Serenity looks very similar, but it's only taking the best aspects of the interfaces it's inspired from and adds on top of them. On the topic of interfaces, there are many themes in SerenityOS, some of which are similar to old Windows Classic themes, while some others are completely original color schemes. But this is so much more than just a Windows lookalike OS. It's a completely open source, built from scratch Unix-like operating system, and we must remember that when reviewing it. While it may look familiar, it's entirely new, and the team behind it makes sure it feels modern when using it. The project has even spawned its own C++ adjacent programming language called Yact, which is basically C++ but memory safe. Hundreds of contributors have ported over 300 open source applications to SerenityOS, so you can have your NeoFetch and your Super Tux cart and your little Python projects in this OS no problem. Well, not exactly no problem. There's no way to install applications from within the OS as of now, meaning there is no package manager. In order to install anything as an end user, you have to use a build script from the ports section of the GitHub repository, which will build the port on your host OS and inject it into the SerenityOS virtual machine. In my experience, many ports require dependencies that I was unable to properly install. I got cryptic error messages I simply could not decipher, and I didn't have more time to spend on this project, so I gave up. The very few instructions there are on how to install ports are quite unclear. You're expected to just know what you're doing, which I think is unfair. Of course, it's a project aimed at developers who are simply having fun with it, but even if I was a developer on it, I would be frustrated with the lack of documentation. Unfortunately, this means I was unable to build Doom to test for this video, despite my several attempts to do so. But can it run Doom? According to Andreas Kling's YouTube channel, yes. Here's footage of him happily running Doom within SerenityOS. Just because I couldn't guess how to do it myself doesn't mean that it can't be done. Overall, SerenityOS is extremely impressive. While the project doesn't necessarily have a goal and it's just a hobby project for all these developers, I would love to see some user-oriented additions and hopefully an ISO release in the future. I could absolutely see SerenityOS being my main in, let's say, 10 years' time if the project continues like this. Thanks for watching! I hope you had as much fun watching this video as we had while making it. At this point, I'd like to remind you to press like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more of my face, and join the Discord server if you want to develop a parasocial bond with me that only Twitch streamers can hope to rival. I'm Chris Kalos, I like computers, and I'll see you next time.